Hey folks, we're back talking about our favorite topic, wealth. And today maybe just talking about what it means to have some friends in this, some folks who can help you along the way. What do you say, Tanya? Yes. Oh, I know the saying. It
Not at the
goes
moment.
something. I know the saying. It goes, if you want to go far, go together.
Uh-huh.
If you want to go fast, go alone.
Yeah.
And the same definitely applies to wealth,
Yeah.
that you probably will go further if you have some like minded people around you. And hopefully, those like minded people can help you stay accountable.
Yeah. And build with you.
Definitely. So, I'm going to read this fun little fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, one US study found that you have a 65% chance of completing a goal if you tell one other person that you are committed to doing it. Just by one speaking it out loud, but preferably to another human being. I am focused on meeting X goal. But it gets better. If you have specific check ins with your, let's call this person your accountability partner or your accountability buddy, your chance of success, meaning that you actually will achieve that goal, increases to, take a guess, Tanya. Higher. Higher, 95%.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that is pretty much like a given that you will hit that goal just by having a regular check in. Pretty impressive.
By the CFPB. The study was specifically on financial goals and
Oh,
coaching.
wow.
And it said that participants increased their savings by an average of $1,600. That's awesome, but that's not the cool number. The cool number is that participants decreased debt on average by $10,000.
Just by having an accountability person.
Yeah, and I've seen this in practice in a whole bunch of settings. Just the act of telling someone or having someone check in on you, we're very quick to fail ourselves. Think about all the things that you say you're going to do that you don't do. We on a very overall practical level, we are a lot more comfortable promising ourselves to do something and not doing it and just being like, okay.
Wow.
But if I tell you I'm going to do something, I don't want to let you down, right? I don't want
Wow.
you to think of me differently, right? The pressure, the outside pressure, the social pressure of
Wow.
saying you have a goal and accomplishing it is much higher than yourself.
And I would also imagine the support, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
anytime a friend has come to me and said, hey, do you want to do this together? Or I'm working on X, will you
Mm-hmm.
help me out? That human nature to be helpful kicks in as well, right? So,
That's what alleviates the burden. It's not all on you, right? You have
exactly,
someone
right?
that's saying, I'm going to do this with you. We're going to do it together. And it's same when someone posts on social media that first workout session in their goal to lose weight, right? You put it out there. Guess what? Now,
Exactly.
all of these people that you had made this announcement to, you don't have to say the words, right? But this is what you're implying by starting this
You
journey.
you are spot on about that because I remember during the pandemic when I got my Peloton bike And I had to wait 2 months, over 2 months to get the bike because they just didn't have enough of it in stock. Everyone was looking for a way to work out from home.
Mhm.
And I posted on my Facebook page just the picture of the van in my driveway.
Yeah.
And all of my friends who were also on Peloton started sending me their Peloton usernames so we could follow each other. But even better, they started texting me their favorite workout routines. Like, frankly, they onboarded me. Like, Peloton didn't have to do anything. Like, my friends were like, oh, you're now Peloton. Here's who you should work out. Here's my routine. Follow me. And it automatically, I was like, oh, within like days, I had taken my first few rides because I was also looking and seeing what my friends were doing.
Community, doing it together. It feels a lot easier when you have a group of folks, like-minded folks, on a journey with you. And that's applicable not only to money, it's applicable to health, it's applicable to sport, it's applicable to a lot of things in our lives. But I remember when I was thinking about getting my executive MBA, and I knew it. I knew that once I said it, like once I told my fiance, this is what I'm thinking of doing, there's point of no return,
That's awesome.
right? So I waited a little while because I was like, oh God,
Because you're
I'm
like,
never gonna hear the end of this.
right? Because you're like, they're going to push me to do this. They're going to
Yeah,
be
that's
like,
it.
have you applied, or in our case,
Yeah,
right? Like, have
exactly.
you
Yeah,
opened an account? Have
yeah. Have
you
you?
set aside, X amount of money so you can hit that goal?
Yep.
But you know what I mean? This insight, right? This is for those of you who are Wealthmore folks. This drove how we designed that product, right? We knew that we could help more people meet that goal, whatever that goal was for the year, if we had this community aspect to it. So you could find other people like you who are trying to buy a home or saving for college, or feel like, hey, I identify as a first generation wealth builder or a newbie investor, and I want to go on this journey together with other folks that have those same goals and aspirations in mind. And that ideally, hey, we could, one, hit our goals, but maybe even exceed those goals through that support system, knowing like, hey, I see other people out there working on the same thing.
I think I had mentioned this to you when we first, in early days of me coming on board to Wealthmore, that when loud budgeting was all over social media, and I thought that was the best thing since sliced bread, right? Because I grew up in a way. First of all, you don't talk to other people about money, certainly, and if you're having money problems, or if you have a money goal, something that you're working on that you'd like to improve, you certainly don't tell other people, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it's the complete opposite, right? The idea of loud budgeting is that you make it known if you're with a group of friends, is that you guys are planning to go out for dinner and say, hey, you know what? I want to go and I'm looking forward to participating. This is my budget for it. And
I
I was
am,
surprised how many people responded so positively when I even did it, to say, hey, all right, cool, but this is my limit for the night. And there were other people chiming up, oh,
me
me
too.
too.
I I am the biggest fan of loud budgeting
Mm-hmm.
because we have sort of created this shame if somebody says, hey, you know what, there's this kind of, if somebody says, oh, I don't want to spend, or I don't want to, or I can't afford to, there's this negative connotation like, oh, you must be broke, versus,
Yeah.
no, I have a financial goal I'm trying to
Yeah.
hit. And this right here is not part of it.
or I want to do it. I want to have this experience, but this is how I would like to do it.
You
And
got it.
by no means, right, when people do these things, you're making it clear what your priorities are,
Yes.
right? And what your goals are. And when you make other people aware of it and you find your people, because you're not the only one, right? You're probably in a group of, you can find 5 or 6 other people that are doing it, but they've resorted to doing it on their own,
Yeah.
right? But once you find your people, you get to do it together. And I loved that I was seeing that trend a lot with young people, because
Yeah.
they're so influenced by all of the money information on social media, and a lot of it is, you know,
Yeah.
crazy stuff.
But you can feel a bit like my life is less than
Hmm.
because I don't have all of these social media moments that are generally tied to consumerism. And we kind of nicknamed this episode Flock Together because
Hmm.
you you need that group that is making wealth building a lifestyle, and it's just part of what you do. Is that, hey, I prioritize building my wealth more than I put importance on the outwardly expression of wealth.
Oh, and it's also, that is really likely to happen when you attach yourself to other people's goals and not your own, right?
Yes,
You have no idea. We have no idea what the person that's posting XYZ,
you
doing
got it.
whatever at this place, what's going on with them, what their finances, what they're trying to accomplish. But once you connect and are in tune with your own goals, nothing feels better than accomplishing your own goal.
Absolutely. So today I'm also like rocking my Wealth is for Us All sweatshirt for you guys out there. Another bit of our wealth more adages or taglines, if you will. But Tanya, this notion of like community is
Hmm.
also deeply rooted in a lot of cultures, right?
Yeah.
I am a first generation American, and I saw the power of these informal social clubs help a lot of immigrant communities get into sort of like mainstream wealth creation in our country. And it was these systems of like, hey, group of people get together and they have a shared savings goal, and they would make a commitment to contributing to this pot of, hey, every month you're on the hook to contribute, be it 500 or $1,000, and this sort of round robin approach until you sort of everyone committed and everyone ultimately would get their 20 or $30,000 saved as a group. And I just love the impact that it had from the broader community in terms of how many people became homeowners, how many people ended up saving. For a lot of families, it was either home ownership or putting their kids into private schools.
Big when I was growing up, and that was the savings plan where everyone had to put X amount of dollars in every week, and you had a turn, you got a number, and depending on where your
Exactly.
number lied in the total, weeks or months of this thing, that determined when you got your money. My mom always felt comfortable with the last
Yeah.
number, which when I was a kid, I didn't understand. She get money now. She's like, I want to know that I put it in, and
Like
it
I've
feels,
earned it.
for her, it
Yeah.
felt like, yes, she earned it.
Yeah.
But that system is alive and well in a lot of places. I met a wonderful, wonderful woman out in Northwestern. She was actually in the Mandela program. So the Mandela program is this program where people from all over the world apply to have like this mini MBA tour of the United States, and she
Okay.
was accepted into the one in Northwestern. And she got into the program because she had set up a system, a susu essentially, for the women in her community. And it was essentially a big saving pot And in order for other people to participate in this program, they had to be invited, and then the person that invited you was basically responsible for you,
Nice.
right?
Like a
So that you
sponsor.
follow through with
Yeah.
your commitments. And it was growing. She had this whole system in place with the women in her community, and it worked really, really well. So the community aspect about building or saving has been around in
Yeah.
cultures for a very, very long time.
So if you're out here listening, I would certainly recommend that you do two things. One, have a goal and share it with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And two, have that regular check in with that individual.
Right.
It will change everything you do because you would have shared that. And if you want to be that A+ student, maybe share it with a few more people.
Yeah. And then work on the goals together, right? Having an accountability
Exactly.
group, having more people involved, solving a problem. Well, there's an optimal group, I'm sure, but having more ideas. We're all not great at all the same things.
Yeah,
There could be a goal that I'm working on that you've accomplished, and you can help me accomplish mine, and vice versa. Working together helps.
absolutely.
And like I said, I mean, I certainly feel the pressure if I say I'm going to do something and involve other people. I'm more motivated and more tied to that goal,
You got
making it
it.
happen, because it's not just me, it's other people involved as well.
Yeah. And when we sort of lean into our mental models as humans, like the way our brains are already hardwired, this notion of we are communal people, we do like to share, we do like to support each other. Even when we're talking about money, it just works. It just
Yeah.
makes it easier. And let's be the generation that sort of walks away from these taboos about talking about money and financial goals
Mm-hmm.
so that we can actually, one, hit our goals in a more meaningful way. But then it's kind of cool when everyone around you is also doing well.
Put your money where your mouth is, right? You're making it clear what's important to you as a person, what's important to you, to your family, um, without putting up a facade, right?
Yeah,
Being authentic in how you communicate and your actions, and actually putting your dollars to work in a way that works for you, and putting it out in the open. There won't
yeah,
be any confusion, right? You're less likely to get into situations that don't work for you either, right? If you
exactly.
have these people in your environment or in your network that are, spending on a different level, they may think twice, right? They may be like, all right, well, hey, I'll invite you to this thing, but they may be more open and upfront to
Yeah,
say, hey, this is what we're looking to do. Do you want to participate or not? As opposed to like being in a situation, you're like,
yeah,
holy crap, this is what? And then
exactly.
putting a negative connotation or a negative feeling around engaging with people that you like to engage with, right? Because someone made an assumption
Yeah.
about how you like to spend your time and your money.
But what advice do we give? Like, I feel like I was lucky. Like, I grew up in a family where saving was always like a key message, right? Like, I think I've shared with some folks before, like my grandmother, she was a super saver. And she was sort of our family's informal financial planner. She gave more unsolicited versus solicited advice
Mm-hmm.
because that was her thing. She felt like it was super important to instill this notion of deferred gratification, spending wisely, like to everyone, right? And when I look
Mm-hmm.
at what my parents accomplished and what my uncles and aunts accomplished in terms of like home ownership and investing, I feel like it all started with that foundation of like having that one, messaging and the expectation and that community support, right? To this day, like we laugh about like the brutal lecture my sister got because she got her first like little part-time job and spent like $100 on a pair of jeans, right? And to this day we're like, oh my God, like that lecture about spending $100 on a pair of jeans. But there are a lot of people out there that don't have that, aren't surrounded with people who have a strong desire to save and invest. So what do we say to those folks? Like, how do we help those folks out?
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right that not everyone comes up, you know, being exposed to the foundation of building wealth, and it could have been because there was no money to speak of, right?
Yeah.
Or there's emotion attached to money all of the time, and if it wasn't attached to it, then money would just be numbers, right? It wouldn't mean anything to any of us. So with those folks, for people who didn't have that foundation, you can certainly build it now, right? It's never too late. I've in all of my careers and working with individuals and families, there are plenty of people who have money and have no idea how to build wealth. They don't know any idea. They don't have an idea on how to grow it. They don't have any idea on how to preserve it, even, and it's because they have not had exposure to the foundation of building wealth. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on with this money that's,
Yeah.
Stopping them from making decisions or taking the actions to build and feel good about the money that they do have. They feel disconnected to it almost to a point,
Yeah.
right? They have this money and they're not happy because the money's not working for them in a way
Yeah.
that they're able to accomplish their goals.
So I
But you're
love
not
what you're
alone.
saying. I love what you're saying because you're essentially saying to those folks who don't have that support system to be the change in their friend
Yeah.
group or their family group, right? To step out and be that person to start building. I like to call it the bench strength, right? Like, our communities need more folks that we can look to and turn to for that support, that acknowledgement, that energy around building wealth. And I distinctly remember talking to a friend who grew up in a community where, wealth creation is a strength in that community. And that friend shared with me that, from his perspective, the problem was that a lot of communities where wealth creation is not the status quo, that those communities lack the bench strength, that they lacked people that young folks could go to get advice, that older people could turn to for guidance on how to invest, how to buy homes, etc. And I thought it was stunning because that friend shared that he had started investing when he was 8 years old. And that by the time he had his bar mitzvah, all of his friends were already active investors. Now, as a Black woman who grew up with savings as a narrative, but not investing, that blew me away. I was like, the idea of trading at 8, I was like, come on,
Well,
like
you had exposure to investing, but it was intangible assets, which is a really, really common
different.
thing with
Yes.
international communities. I know in my community, that's how the goal was to buy a property.
Yeah.
But the idea of investing in stocks or something that you can't touch, that
Way
made
over
no
here.
sense. That's gambling. That's
Like
why would you give your
gambling.
money?
No, you
Yeah.
did not use the word gambling, but you are
Yeah.
spot on. It was
Mm-hmm.
viewed as gambling. And while my grandmother was a super saver, I could never get her to invest in anything beyond putting money in a
CD.
savings account and doing CDs. She would not touch the market. And that's a miss because we know the wealth creation that is tied to investing in the capital markets is significantly higher than having your money sit in savings accounts and CDs that pay very low interest rates. But we didn't have that investing bench strength in our community to get folks comfortable with that way of creating wealth. And
To say that things were different, right? When your grandmother was saving money, she was able to earn 7, 8% on a CD, right? And our life experience is very different, right? The way to make money or to have your funds grow was to invest because those interest rates just didn't exist. And also
yeah,
when I look at my mother's generation, which my family didn't have, they weren't, some were good savers and good at buying property, but they're also in a very, they grew up in a, or had their
yeah,
come up in a different environment, right? The
yeah,
folks that we work with, or the folks that would be awesome Wealthmore users, are people who are surrounded by consumerism all day, every single day.
yeah.
The the opportunity to spend your money, I mean,
Is
it's
abundant,
endless, right? And
endless.
it's in your face all the time.
Yes.
I would vie to say that, it was likely a different experience for the folks that our benchmarks, for the people that we
Yeah.
saw growing up that were building wealth. It was a very different environment for them than it is right now. But
Yeah.
you're not the only person struggling with that, right? Yes,
But
it's different, but that's why a platform that offers community is so important. And this bench, it may not be your family members or the friends that you grew up with, right? So that's why you may not find those people in your immediate vicinity. But that's why
yeah,
having access to a platform where there are a bunch of people
you got it.
that are aligned with what you're trying to do, you can build your own bench.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the notion of building that bench strength. One, building that knowledge set within yourself, but then expanding that so that you build the bench strength within your communities, your circles, because that's where our big vision of like wealth is for us all. I think that's where the magic happens, right?
Yeah.
Where you're investing, your sister, your brother, you've gotten like, other friends investing, and the next generation is getting that wisdom of, hey, this is how you invest. And when I think of my own kids, anytime they want a new Apple device, I encourage them to buy an Apple share and getting them into that mindset of own companies, not just be the consumers to those organizations. Be
Yeah.
stakeholders, be equity holders.
Just he had his confirmation not too long ago, and he got a bunch of cash. And I love when he gets cash, right? Because most of the things he wants are digital. And I remember one time he had asked me, he was just like, "Oh, how do I get this $100 on my Apple Pay?" I was like, "Take a picture of it and upload it to your phone." It's just like, what? It's like, yeah, that's how you get it. That's how you get it in. Now, this is the way I have, throughout him growing up, is sort of messing with him with these little things. But the thing about cash in this environment is not as easy to spend when we're in a very digital world. And for
Yes.
kids, I love when he gets cash because he has no choice but to give.
Yes.
And then we have a conversation. You got X amount of dollars. What's the plan? Right? And just that act of figuring out
Thinking about
what
it,
is this
right?
money supposed to do. Listen, he may still make a terrible decision with the amount that I'm letting him
Yes.
have access to, right?
Yes.
That is perfectly fine. But getting him into the habit of making a plan, not spending it right away, the beginning of the weekend, he had a whole plan of what he was going to do with this money, right? By Sunday, he said to me, he's like, you know what, mommy, just hold on to it.
Isn't that
I just
awesome?
needed to. I know, like, you also learn people, and I know my son. My son is
Yeah.
just someone that will make a decision right away. But if I just have him pause, he forgets about it,
But that
and
goes
that's
into
how we.
the notion of like conscious spending, right? Because
Yeah,
you made him pause,
yeah,
and then he had to really think about like, what do I really want? Or is it just the thrill of having the money? So now,
yeah,
like, because he had the money, he was now thinking and cooking up ways to spend it.
yeah,
But then just that pause of like, but what do you really
yeah.
need or want? And
Hmm.
making that a more mindful thought process, right?
Yeah,
And then
and that's
he
something
realized,
I
like,
had to do myself too.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
He realized, like, do what am I really lacking?
Yeah, you forget about it. The
Yeah,
thing that was so important in that moment. And that's also, I mean, I've done that myself, right? I have all these things. I was like, oh my God, I need this, I need this. And what I do is I go to the app and I put it in the cart, but I never buy it. Never actually put, unless it's like paper
yeah,
towels or toilet paper, right? You kind of need that. But all these other things that in that instant
yeah,
I felt that I needed, I have taught myself to just pause.
yeah.
And most of the time, I mean, yesterday I went into my Amazon because I thought of something. I had 17 things in the cart.
Wow.
Ended up deleting
You're like, clear the
the,
card out.
the majority of them, um, because I you have to learn what works for you too. But this
Yeah,
little thing, right? If you are someone that tends to buy things, rather quickly without thinking, and then thinking about like where did my money go, maybe that's a tip that would work
yeah,
for you. But how would you know unless you were in community with someone that's trying to do the same thing,
same.
or has been successful finding ways
Yeah.
to sort of alter their behavior?
And I want to also make sure that we are thinking about not forgetting, like, definitely forget the thing that you were going to buy that you didn't really need
Hmm.
and that you move past it. But we also have the similar situation when it comes to investing where people get busy and they
Hmm.
forget to do that thing. And that's where that community and that accountability person can also be helpful. And certainly, by all means, join the Wealth More platform because we're building that and automating it. But that's another way in which that check in is helpful because that person will remind you. And if your check in is every Saturday or if your check in is once a month on Monday, that check in will also help to remind you, hey, did you remember to do that thing towards that goal of yours?
But that's another component, right? It's not just the accountability and the action, which some actions, right, we have to sort of rewire,
Yeah,
like we said, pause for that. But it also has to be very easy for you to
yeah,
do the thing that you want to do. So things like saving, that should be automatic.
yes. I agree.
The
I agree.
easier it is for you to do that, so the pressure of building the goal gets alleviated tremendously if you don't have to constantly do that action, move
Yeah,
that money. Um, Obviously, any investment strategy, consistency is the most important. Consistency in time.
yeah,
And with our portfolios, you for sure can have automatic investments, right? Schedule these investments so you don't have to
yeah,
think about it. But there's so many elements um, that are necessary for you to be successful
yeah,
to accomplish any goal. But making it easier is certainly one of them. And the easier you make it for you to do the things that are important to you, the more likely you are to do it.
yeah.
It's like, if you sign up for a gym that takes you 45 minutes to get to, you're not going to go to that gym because it's too
But
far.
I'm like you. I think you and I are both in like We probably like auto pay. We probably like reoccurring investments. But I've heard the opposite side of the argument as well. I've heard from the folks who like a strong level of control that those features they're not necessarily a fan of it. That they like to take that action of like, today is my day to do the thing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if that works for you, you can do that. But it's sort of the simplest part, which is just moving the money.
Yeah.
Maybe you do want to put an alert to remind yourself to actually invest that money, which may be two separate things depending on how
Exactly.
your investment account is set up. But actually moving the money out, paying yourself, that 100% should be automatic.
Yeah.
Now, there's a big difference between auto investing, auto saving, and auto pay. Pay is not going to you. It's going to someone else. So I completely understand folks that don't like auto pay. And
Yeah.
I don't like auto pay over a certain amount of money. It's just my mental model of what I'm comfortable leaving my account without me actually doing it.
Looking at it.
Yes, because
Yeah.
I do have a limit. But
Yeah.
figuring it out so that it works for you is super important. And another thing about auto pay, just another little thing, you should review your auto pay.
What's
Because
that?
when you should review your auto pay because prices do go up. And if you don't check it, all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I have less money in my account. It's because you have a whole bunch of auto pays and you didn't realize
Yes.
when Disney Plus, Hulu, or whoever, or even Amazon decided
Yeah.
to raise their prices because everything's on auto pay. So
Yeah.
taking time to review these things are super important too. But when it comes to paying yourself, oh, of course, do
Yeah.
that first and make it as easy as possible.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you. Folks out there, you've got to figure out the model that works the best for you, but making it something that you have a way of holding yourself accountable and having that environment of folks and communities is key. And if that is recurring investments for folks like me who are like, I just want it to happen, or if you're one of the folks who wants an alert and who wants to have that personal victory moment of like hitting the submit button, hey, you do you, but just make sure you get it done.
Even sometimes we create barriers that are made up, right? So sometimes you get someone that says, oh, I'm not comfortable with auto investment, right?
Yeah.
Okay, how much have you invested over the past year,
Now
right? And
talk
that's where the
about,
accountability
yeah,
comes in, right? Because that would be the question I would ask. Like, okay,
yeah.
has it been working your way?
You know,
But that's
that's
the
that's that
change.
what I mean, now you're getting into the space of that self audit, right? Of I have not embraced this particular resource or tool that can help me, but maybe the system I put in place isn't working for me
Yep.
either. And I might be a good time to have an open mind and try something else. Maybe you just try
Yeah.
it for 3 months. I'm always a believer in giving yourself like 90 days to try something before you turn your back on it. Yeah.
Yep. 100%. And that's where the community piece is so important,
Yes.
right? Because you have a whole bunch of people trying to accomplish similar goals, and you have the accountability, you have the availability of ideas and trying things out, having hopefully also a couple of folks who are experienced in accomplishing a thing that you're trying to accomplish, right? They can give you tips. And, all of our communities are run by one of our planners, right?
Exactly.
So you have access to people that, from a professional and experience standpoint, help people build wealth all the time. And that's the power of our community along
Yep.
with guided, customized help. I mean, because you're certainly not going to be in a community selling. I mean, you may be in deep selling,
Yes.
to the detail, but you may not want to do that. You can sort
I
of
know.
hold each other accountable, but talk one-on-one with your planner.
Well, I know certainly that since starting Wealthmore and having this community, I know I've certainly done better, been more mindful, had far more access to wealth advice. So for those of you out there who maybe are looking for that community, you're always welcome here. But we leave you on this simple note. 1, share your goal with someone. 2, have that regular check-in. Your chances of success are 95%. That's practically
Anything?
guaranteed.
How many things give you a 95% success rate?
I mean, that's like a lock, right? Like we just
I
gave you the gems, right?
right.
Find a human.
We tell you to open your eyes.
I mean,
Like,
find
yeah,
a human. Hey, I don't care if it's your male person. Share the goal with them.
yeah.
You're going to see your male person every day, likely. Have a regular check-in. 95% success rate, folks. Get it done.
Mical, we could have. It could be the first person. Could you imagine people just walk around the first person they see? Ah, this is
You
Mical.
might be surprised.
You
You
might be
might be
surprised.
surprised because they may share a goal with you and you may
Yeah.
become each other's accountability buddy. Go out
Oh my
there,
God.
get the buddy boost, 95% guaranteed success. Go do.
That's gonna be awesome.